Hello. You must have all experienced stress at some time or the other. The world is full of stress around us. Did you know that the emotional and physical reactions which you have to any stress is initiated by a series of chemical releases and in the body? So, today we are going to look at the peripheral nervous system and the endocrine system. The peripheral nervous system consists of two parts, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system consists of two different kinds of neurons, that is the sensory neurons which carry messages to the central nervous system, and the motor neurons which carry it from the central nervous system to the different muscles and skeletons of the body. Now, apart from this, we have the second part, which is the autonomic nervous system, and this is the system which comes into play when you are experiencing stress. The autonomic nervous system has two parts, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So, what the sympathetic system does is, when you are experiencing stress, it gears up the body, it arouses it and prepares all the organs of the body to prepare you to combat this stress which you are experiencing. So, a series of changes takes place in your body as you are experiencing stress, and you may know what are some of the changes. If you look at it, your eyes, your pupils may be dilated, your heart is beating faster, your hands are feeling all sweaty, your digestive system goes on hold, okay? And there are so many other things which are happening in the body. Now, if your body continued to experience this kind of change for a prolonged period of time, it would be very harmful for your body. So, the other system, the parasympathetic nervous system, rushes in after an appropriate time to bring body back to its normal state. And so, it through various actions, it brings back all the organs of the body which have been aroused to its normal state, and so hopes to bring your body back into a state of equilibrium, which is known as homeostasis, where all the systems of the body are working in a optimal manner. So, the sympathetic and parasympathetic system is spread all over the body. All the different parts of the body prepare the body for arousal and then bring the body back to its normal state. So, they work together in tandem to keep your body aroused at the right time and then bring it back to its normal position. When you are under stress, there is another important biological system which is also active, and that is the endocrine system. This endocrine system is also an important communication system, and it regulates the bodily actions, and it is very similar to the nervous system. Now, what the endocrine system does is, it releases certain hormones into the body which influence the kind of behavior which you will exhibit. The endocrine system is very similar to the nervous system in many ways. The hormones are directly regulated by the brain, by the hypothalamus. So, it is closely linked to the nervous system, and some of the hormones which are released into the body are very similar to neurotransmitters. In fact, there are some which are both hormones as well as neurotransmitters. If you remember, neurotransmitters are chemicals which are active in the nervous system. So, hormones are very similar to that. And the hormones and the nervous system's ability to control the body by activating many organs during physical stress, just like the nervous system, and it influences metabolism, the level of blood sugar and sexual functioning. So, it is very closely related to the nervous system. Now, let us look at the action of the hormones. Hormones act in a very gradual fashion. They are secreted into the bloodstream and take sometimes several hours to bring about the action. They alter our behavior by changing the intensity. For example, when you are very angry, it is a certain level of a particular hormone which makes you more angry or less angry. So, they change the level of intensity of the behavior. Hormones can change behavior and behavior can alter the hormones. So, they are reciprocal in nature, they are influencing each other. Each hormone can have many effects on behavior, and a single behavior may be affected by many hormones. So, one hormone can have many effects, it can affect several things. On the other hand, one behavior can be affected by many hormones. So, it is important for you to remember these things. Now, hormones are produced in small amounts and often are secreted in bursts, okay, not all at a time. And throughout the day, the levels of hormones vary rhythmically. At some times of the day, certain hormone levels are high, and at other times of the day, they are low. So, they work in perfect orchestration with the other parts of the body, if it is a normal functioning. But during times of stress and all, you may find abnormally elevated levels of certain hormones, which is not good for the body over a prolonged period of time. Now, hormones interact. The effect of one hormone interacts with the effect of other hormones. So, these are some of the basic principles of hormonal action. And also, there are two ways in which hormones affect the body. One is activation, where they change the levels of hormones in the body, and the other is certain hormones are released in the body which help differentiation of the brain and body. This happens particularly in the prenatal period and during adolescence, when the release of certain hormones makes it possible for certain body structures to develop in a particular way. So, not only do they change the levels, that is activation, but they are also influential in bringing about the differentiation of the different body structures. Now, each endocrine system, there are many structures, and each of them secrete specific hormones and which have different effects on the body. So, now let us just look at these structures a little more in detail. Actually, it directly sends messages to another structure which is also in the brain, which is known as the pituitary gland. Now, this pituitary gland is called the master gland. It is a small structure and orchestrates most of the release of the hormones. Now, this pituitary gland secretes some of its own hormones and also sends information to the other organs to secrete their own hormones. So, unless they get a message from the pituitary, the other organs will not secrete particular hormones. Now, some of the hormones which are secreted by the pituitary itself are the follicle stimulating hormone FSH, the luteinizing hormone LH, and the growth hormone. Now, this growth hormone, if it is not secreted in sufficient amounts, leads to dwarfism, and if it is secreted too much, can lead to gigantism. Now, what happens is, you find that many children are not growing properly, they are not attaining the height and weight which is normal for children of that age. It is very important to identify this in the early stages, because nowadays if they find that there is less secretion of the growth hormone, children can be given synthetic growth hormone and their growth can be brought back to normal. So, this affects the growth. Then we have prolactin, which is another hormone which stimulates milk production by the breast after the birth of the baby in lactation. Then we have oxytocin, which influences childbirth and also lactation. The antidiuretic hormone, which causes increased water absorption. So, if you have water retention, it helps. Then we have the thyroid stimulating hormone, which combines with iodine at the thyroid gland to produce another hormone. So, these are some of the hormones of the pituitary. Some of them are directly secreted by the pituitary and some of them are secreted in combination with the other hormones. It combines with the other hormones. Now, the next structure we look at is the adrenal glands. These are two glands which are located just above the kidneys, and it has two parts, the outer covering and the inner covering, which are known as the adrenal cortex and the adrenal medulla. And both of these are active during times of stress. They secrete hormones which are active when we are under stress. Another important structure in the endocrine system are the gonads. These are the reproductive glands, and these are the testes in males and the ovaries in females, and they secrete hormones known as androgens, which include male hormones testosterone and female hormones estrogen. Now, all of us have estrogen and testosterone, whether male or female, but the testosterone dominates, is secreted in more amounts in the males and less in the females. So, females secrete more of estrogens. Now, it is during puberty that these hormones which are secreted bring the reproductive system into its full force, and a boy or a girl are come of a reproductive age. Reproduction is possible because of the action of these hormones. These hormones also act in the uterus at the time of development in the uterus, and they have important actions in the uterus. The thyroid gland secretes a hormone known as thyroxine. Again here, if there is too much of thyroxine or too less of it, there are problems, and it can cause drowsiness and a sluggish metabolism. Metabolism is the burning of the fat. So, this becomes sluggish when the thyroid is underactive. So, when you experience these things, it could be a problem with your thyroid gland, and it can have the opposite action also when there is overproduction of thyroxine, that is the hormone secreted by the thyroid gland. So, when there is underproduction of thyroxine, it can lead to certain conditions which include cretinism, which is low metabolic rates. That means, your metabolism is working very slowly, and this can result in low mental development in children. Okay, so, this is a symptom of low production of thyroxine. Another condition which is known as myxedema is where you feel tired, you have a lack of energy, and again slow mental and physical activity, and also weight gain in adults. You can suspect that there is low secretion of thyroxine. And of course, another condition known as goitre, which is a swelling of the thyroid, which is visible also. Excess of thyroxine causes a condition known as Graves' disease. Here the metabolism is raised and the symptoms are bulging eyes, weight loss, heat production, nervousness, irritability and anxiety. So, whenever you experience this, you could suspect, a doctor may ask you to take a test to see if thyroxine levels are too high or normal. Now, we come to another gland which are known as the parathyroid glands. They are 4 tiny pea-shaped organs which is within the thyroid itself, and they secrete a hormone to control the levels of calcium and phosphate in your body, and this affects the excitability of the nervous system. So, within the thyroid itself, the parathyroids also influence our behavior. So, you can see a lot of our behavior is influenced by these hormones which are secreted by the endocrine glands. Now, the pancreas lie in a curve between the stomach and the small intestine, and they control the levels of sugar in the blood. They secrete insulin and glucagon. This is important psychologically because this affects our hunger motive. So, it makes you more hungry or less hungry, okay, and helps also in determining how energetic a person feels. So, if you are feeling very low and low levels of energy and not very hungry and all, you could suspect the production of insulin or the other hormones which is secreted by the pancreas. Now, we come to a very tiny gland known as the pineal gland. It is again a pea sized gland in the brain, and this regulates the levels of activity during the day and produces melatonin. That is the hormone which it produces, melatonin. And the circadian rhythm is what regulates our sleep and wake cycles. Okay. So, if you have any disturbance in that, it could be due to the level of melatonin in your body, and that is what must be affected in when you are traveling and you experience jet lag also when you cross certain time zones. And of course, it also controls the other biological rhythm, which is the menstrual cycle in females. It also regulates our moods, melatonin. Depending on the level, it could regulate your mood. And the synthesis and production of this is stimulated by darkness and lightness. The thymus gland is located behind the breastbone and produces thymosin, which causes the white blood cells to become mature and active, and this is what helps in the immune system. So, your immunity depends a lot on this hormone. So, we have seen the different glands and the hormones which they secrete and the different actions which they have, and in a certain behavior like we saw, metabolism could be affected by 2-3 hormones. Okay. Levels of activity also may be influenced by 2-3 hormones, and so they do influence a lot of what is happening in our body. Okay. Now, let us compare, because we said that the hormonal communication, it is a communication system, because by the release of the particular hormones, the body carries out certain actions. So, it is a communication system. So, it is very similar to the neural system. If you remember, the neural system is an electrochemical communication system. The impulse is carried out first electrically and then chemically. So, let us look, and hormones are also chemicals. Let us compare the two and see how they are similar and how they are different. If you look at the neural system, it is like a telephone. It goes from one point to another, whereas the hormonal system is more like a TV broadcasting system, where it spreads out to many. Okay. Now, the action of the neurons is very rapid, and you remember it follows a all or none law. It either fires or it does not, and it is very rapid. It travels very rapidly. In fact, when the neurons are firing, even before we know what is happening, we are reacting based on the information carried by the neurons. On the other hand, the hormonal system is very slow. As I told you, once the hormones are released into the body, it may take several hours for the action to happen. Now, the neural communication system is digitized, as I said, all or none law, whereas a hormonal system is more like an analog system. And we do have some control over the neural system, but very little control over the hormones. They are more involuntary, they happen on their own. We do not have much control over the hormonal communication system. And the basic similarity between the two is that they are both communication systems and both are chemical in nature. What are the effects on behavior? It affects our eating and drinking. Definitely, it affects our reproductive behavior, our sexual behavior, our lactation, our differentiation of organs. Then it has a direct effect on the biological rhythms which our body follows, which is the menstrual cycle, the circadian cycle of sleep and waking states, and moods. Okay. It definitely helps the body to face stress by releasing certain hormones which prepare you again for action, and growth is affected by the secretion of certain hormones, and if these hormones are not secreted at the right time, growth will be affected, which can be rectified if detected early enough. Then certain hormones are also implicated in memory formation. If hormones are not secreted at the right time with the right levels, it interferes with the laying down of new memories. So, that is also important. These are all new research areas which show that hormones also affect memory formation. And psychopathology also, many of the disorders you will see low or high levels of certain neurotransmitters as well as hormones, which are similar in nature, I told you. Then our social behavior is also affected by the hormones. So, you can see that the endocrine system is very influential in many of our behaviors, and we need to understand this when especially to see whether why we are behaving in a particular way. If your moods are depressed, or your body is not working properly, or you are not growing properly, or you have problems in sleeping, or you have nutrition problems and all that, a wise doctor will always ask you to check your hormone levels.
Ma'am, could you please tell us the influence of hormones on women?
Hormones play a very important role in a woman's life. I mean, different stages of her life, we find that these hormones have a real influence. Now, if you look at your menstrual cycle, your menstrual cycle is regulated by certain hormones, and hormones which are active are the follicle stimulating hormone, the luteinizing hormone, and these regulate your ovulation, the cycle, menstrual cycle, and at a certain time during ovulation there will be certain levels of this hormone which make a woman more appear more sexier to the opposite sex. So, this is an inbuilt mechanism which makes it possible for reproduction. So, because it is at the time of ovulation that a woman is most ready for conceiving, and so the hormone levels make you do this. So, this is something which is really interesting to know about. During pregnancy also, there are many hormones which play an important role you have many mood swings during pregnancy, then you have craving for extra food, different kinds of food, all right, and sometimes you just want to sleep. These are all due to your hormonal levels. Also, after childbirth, the oxytocin and other hormones which makes it possible for the milk production and for the fact that you look after your baby. These are also regulated by the maternal feelings which you get for looking after the baby are regulated by your hormones. Now, if at another stage of life, that is towards the 40s and 50s, most women experience what we call menopause, when her menstrual cycle becomes infrequent and then ceases totally. So, this is also carried out by the action of hormones. So, during the the menopause, which could happen suddenly for some people, but which extends over 1 or 2 years for others, you will find that the levels of hormone in the body keep bouncing up and down. The hormone levels may go up or they may come down, and this leads to a lot of different symptoms in the body, which include hot flushes, sometimes depression, sweating, and other disturbances. And finally, at the end of 1 or 2 years, or for some luckily just maybe 2 months, the hormones they cease to be produced. Okay, not totally, but they come down. Now, what has happened is, I told you earlier that both males and females have testosterone, which are male hormones, and estrogens, which are female hormones. So, when menopause occurs, the female hormones almost cease to be produced, okay? And so women experience a lot of problems, some of them changes in the body, black spots on the face, dryness, and all those kind of things. But what happens is, this brings to the fore the testosterone levels, and it has been found that women become a little more aggressive after menopause. They exhibit male characteristics. In fact, some of them may also have increased hair growth, body hair. Okay? So, this is again a result of the hormonal levels. Now, also it has been observed in athletic women who are sports women. They find that during competition, in the heat of competition, when they are really geared up, they find high levels of testosterone. So, you can see in athletic women, in normal women, your menstrual cycle, your childbearing, the feeding of the child, and then later menopause. At all these times, the hormones play a very important role, and that explains the different kinds of behavior which we exhibit during these times. Now, what about men? Also hormones play a role, and what do you associate testosterone with? When you talk about testosterone, it means aggressiveness, which is considered a male characteristic, and it is associated with both aggressiveness and irritability. So, if you have a grouchy boss, it could be high levels of testosterone. If you have a bad tempered husband, okay, it could also be due to the hormonal actions. Or if you have a very competitive game partner, suppose you are playing some game like bridge or some other thing, and you find that your partner is very competitive. Okay. So, again you can think that there are high levels of testosterone, but we can see that of course, males also are influenced by the hormones, but here we are talking more about the male and female hormones. So, a lot of hormone action for women, and if you understand this, then it makes it possible for us to explain a lot of behavior which is different at normal times, but different in these periods in a woman's life. So, to sum up, we can say that the endocrine system is a very important system of our body and helps to regulate our behavior by secreting hormones directly into the bloodstream. It influences much of our behavior, and actions of these hormones are spread throughout the body, and different glands secrete different hormones, and all these glands are controlled by the pituitary gland, which secretes its own hormones as well as directs the other structures glands to secrete their own hormones, and sometimes in combination they secrete the hormones. Now, the pituitary also is controlled by the hypothalamus, which is in the brain, and therefore, we can see that the nervous system and the endocrine system work together in an integrated fashion to fashion our behavior.